How's it going, guys? It's Wes here from Coast Budget Builds. Today we are going to be putting new jets in the Toyota over here. Basically what I did is I took the stock jets that were in it and I drilled them out because the turbo was forcing so much air that we weren't getting enough fuel. So what I ended up doing is taking the stock ones and drilling them out, but I went a little overboard on it, so I drilled them out probably 0.5 or 0.8 millimeters too big. So today what I'm gonna do is I'm going to put some stock jets back in it for the primary, and then I'm gonna leave the secondary jet real big because it needs to get tons of fuel under boost. So what I'll do is I will show you the process of how I take the carburetor apart and explain a little bit under the hood, because I know you guys have been itching to see how this Jimmy rig contraption is. So I will continue on with this video and I will show you exactly what we did to make this car go as fast as it does. And yeah, we'll just keep going throughout the day. So here's a little preview under the hood. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're looking at it and you're like, holy crap, what a mess. Like, what is going on under here? But believe it or not, in all this madness, it actually makes the car run, and it's crazy how fast it goes now. Like I said before, the transmission's slipping like crazy, so I'm going to be on the lookout for a standard. But anyways, I'll start by explaining kind of what's under here and what's going on. So obviously that's the turbo there. It's an Air Research. It's out of a Mercedes diesel. I'm not too sure on the exact diameter of it, but it's big for this car. This weird contraption over here is an F350 fuel pump that a buddy of mine had sitting around, so we decided to throw in here. And then there's an electric fuel pump up here as well with a gate valve. And then this is the old stock mechanical pump we just left unplugged because it did not put enough fuel out. Blow off valve, obviously, carb hat, some Jimmy rig ABS piping wrapped in exhaust wrap because people said that it would melt. So that actually worked, and it holds boost pretty good. What I did on the carburetor is I got rid of the vacuum control for the idle. That's why this spring is in here. I don't know if you know Asian carbs very well, but this spring usually has a little valve on the end of it that is controlled by vacuum, which controls your idle, but under boost it was messing with it. So we got rid of that. Basically there's two fuel lines. There's one fuel line here that routes around with a 5-pound check valve right here and goes into the F350 pump. And then over here, this pump runs through and then tees off and then comes into the carburetor as well. So what happens is, under boost, because the carburetor is only designed to handle 5 pounds, is we put this, I don't know if you can see it here in the video, there is this little micro switch right here. So now how that works is, once the throttle is opened, see if I can reach in here and show you. Here's the throttle here, and you can see the switch isn't being pressed. But what happens is, under throttle, as soon as you get past a certain point on the throttle, it kicks, you can hear it, it kicks this pump in. So basically what I've tried to do is made sure that when we're normal driving, this pump will run 5 pounds into the carburetor, and then the float bowl will drop, or sorry, the float will drop in the float bowl under boost. And then what happens is, when the float is down, this pump kicks in and forces like 15 pounds of fuel pressure in, so it doesn't blow up the carburetor because the float's dropped. There's no way for it to build up pressure because all that fuel is just going through the motor as opposed to building up in the carb bowl. So that, I know that's a lot to take in, but that actually is how we control putting more fuel pressure through a carburetor without having to change the carb to some, I don't know, high pressure version or whatever, because like I said, it's on a budget, and this this thing is budget built as it gets. So another thing is, we don't have a fuel pressure regulator for the F350 pump. Now this puts out 35 pounds of fuel pressure at 220 gallons per hour, so that's way too much fuel for the carburetor. Even with the setup that we have, if we didn't regulate the fuel somehow, we would end up forcing way too much fuel in there, and it would force the float closed and then just flood the motor out. So how I compensated with that is this check valve, for one, only allows fuel going forward to the carburetor, and then this line here has this little brass valve on it, and that returns to the fuel tank. So what I've done there is I've regulated the amount of fuel that actually gets to the motor, and the rest goes back. So that's how we could get 10-15 pounds to the carburetor. And then the only reason that this check valve or gate valve is here is because when this pump kicks in, it puts out so much pressure that it actually forces it back into the other electric pump, and we lose pressure there. So had to stop that from happening and get it to actually go into the carburetor as opposed to through the pump. Okay, now that that's out of the way, because I know you guys wanted to know how that works, the other thing that was done, which might be a little bit more complicated, I don't know if I can really show you in this video, I might have to make another one with better light, is the secondary control. Now if you look on the throttle, you can see that other spring there that's turning that bottom valve. Now that's for the secondary on the carb. It was controlled by vacuum as well. So as soon as the vacuum would start to decrease, it would open the secondary to add more fuel. Now it wasn't opening in time, and it was leaning the car out. So what we ended up doing with that is I took the vacuum secondary out completely and welded a half moon onto the primary carburetor linkage. So what it does is it opens the secondary as well as the primary pretty much at the same time. Now you might think that that's too much fuel, but with 10 pounds of boost running into this crazy contraption, that's exactly how much fuel we need, right? We need as much fuel as possible. But I think my biggest mistake was drilling the jets out too big, because now it's flooding out like crazy. But anyway, so that's everything to do under the hood here. I mean, we've obviously got a bigger radiator in here. The stock one was only about this big, so we threw that in there to get some more cooling. The blow-off valves obviously routed under there for pure enjoyment of that blow-off sound. That's hilarious. And then we've got some jimmy-rigged hose here for an intake, and hose clamps and fittings, and some rubber over here, and some jimmy-rigged wires with some crimps over here, and gauge over there. The whole thing is just jimmy-rigged, but it's scary as hell. So I will show you guys some more videos of it actually running and going down the road. I'm sorry I've taken so long to post those, but the weather's been absolute hell, so we haven't been able to get traction or any good footage lately. But I'll do my best to put some videos up and let you know how she runs after I change the jets. So stay tuned for more Coast budget build madness.